Welcome back! In this video, we are continuing our quest to transform our Thrive Theme Builder companion theme, Kwik, to match our brand. So this is part 2. If you have not yet watched part 1, I do recommend watching that first so you can get up to speed. Alright, so in part 1 of this video, we finished customizing the header. Let's move on to the hero section. So in this hero section here, I would like to use a darker background, and I would like these design elements on the left here to be on the right, and vice versa. Now this is a 2-column setup, and you could manually click and drag everything from one column to the other, but that would take a few extra seconds. An easier way is to simply reverse the column order. So to do that, I'll simply click in one of the columns. Then I'll make sure that columns is highlighted in the breadcrumbs. And then in the main options tab, I'll simply click reverse column order. Next, let's change the background. So let's take a look at the example I've put together. And we can see that there is a brown background here with a slight stripe pattern to it. And there's actually also a gradient on top of it. So let's go ahead and create this. By the way, if you would like to learn more about creating impressive backgrounds, we do have a video on that, which we will link for you. So let's go ahead and click inside of this background section here. Make sure that background section is highlighted in the breadcrumbs. Then let's go to the background style tab, and let's go ahead and add a color. You can use the color picker here to select a new color. I've already got a color saved in my favorites, so I'll select that. And I'll click apply. Next, let's add a pattern on top of that. So I'll click on the pattern swatch here, and I'll go ahead and choose my pattern, and I'll choose a color for the pattern. Now, just to add a little bit of visual interest, I'm also going to add a gradient. So I'll click on the gradient button here, and now I'll choose the colors for my gradient. To do that, I'll select one of the color stops, and then I'll select the color for that part of the gradient. For the other one, I'm going to go ahead and make that transparent so that we can see some of the pattern and the color underneath it. And I'll go ahead and adjust the angle of the gradient. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and apply that, and let's work on the text in this section. So I'll start with changing the color of the text. Let's go ahead and change this one also. And now I'll replace the text for our own. Everything is click to edit, so you can simply click on a text element and begin typing. Next, let's remove some of the design elements that maybe aren't necessary. Of course, that is completely subjective. If you like the extra design elements, then by all means keep them in. So I would like to remove this content box here, so I'll simply click on it, and then I'll use the trash can icon to remove that item. And I'll do the same thing for this content box as well. Now the icon here is really easy to change. I'll simply click on it. And then in the main options tab, I'll go to change icon. And then you can use the search field to search for a new icon. I'll go ahead and choose this one. Now if you need to, you can also change the color for the icon. You can change the size of the icon, and you can rotate the icon. Now the last thing that I would like to do in this section is customize this button. So let's take a look at the example again. And you can see that I've created sort of a leaf shape and also added a drop shadow. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's click on the button, make sure that button is highlighted in the breadcrumbs. Then let's go to the borders and corners tab. And then to round the upper left corner here, I'll simply select the upper left corner, and then I'll increase the pixel radius. And then to round the bottom right corner, I'll select the bottom right corner, and again, I'll increase the pixel radius. And then you can add a drop shadow to this button by going to the Shadow tab, and then click the Drop Shadow button. And if you need to, you can adjust the drop shadow settings. All right, so this section looks pretty good. Let's move on to the next section. So we have this 4-column section here. Now, when you see a pre-designed layout with a certain number of columns, you might be tempted to use everything that's there just because it seems easier than adjusting the layout. But it's really very easy to get rid of things, in particular columns. So if you only need 3 of these columns, you can easily remove the 4th. Simply click inside of the column here, make sure that column is highlighted in the breadcrumbs, and then click on the trash can icon. Next, let's change the colors for these titles and let's swap out the text for our own. Then to change these icons here, simply click on the icon, then go to the main options tab and choose a new icon. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's move on to the next section. So here we have the Our Story section, and below that we have our team. Now, if you don't have a lot to say, or if you don't have a lot of people on your team, you may want to condense these 2 sections into one, like the example that I've put together here. So let's go ahead and do that. To begin with, let's get rid of the elements that we don't need. So let's go ahead and get rid of this. And we also don't need this element either. And let's get rid of these as well. Now, to move these team images up to the section above it, look for the container that contains all of these images as well as the names and the text elements below them. So let's go ahead and click on an image here, and we can see that that container would be the columns element. Then use the crosshairs to click and drag the columns to where you want them. Now, to add a little bit of text here that says Our Team, I'll simply go up here to Our Story, and I'll go ahead and duplicate that. And then I'll use the crosshairs icon to click and drag this title to where I want it. And let's go ahead and change the color. And let's also change the alignment. Now, to replace these images, you can simply click on an image. And then in the main options tab, you can click Replace Image, and then choose a new image from your media library. All right, and so to complete this section, let's swap out the text for our own. Okay, so I'm happy with this section. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Okay, so this is the section that I added in earlier using blocks. Now, there's nothing wrong with the styling of this section, but you can add in small touches to really make your website look like it was custom designed. So let's take a look at the example here. You can see that we do have a patterned background for this section. I've also changed the shape of this container here and added a drop shadow. And we've also changed the shape of this container here. And I've also changed the color of these titles. So let's start by adding a pattern to this background. I'll click in this section here. I'll make sure that the right section is highlighted in the breadcrumbs. Then I'll go to the background style tab, and let's go ahead and add a pattern on top of this color. Of these patterns here, I like this one the best. Let's go ahead and choose a color for the pattern. And I'm happy with this, so I'll click Apply. Now, a nice feature of this particular block is that this section here is sticky. So it remains on the page while the column on the right here scrolls. So let's go ahead and let's style this content box to really call attention to it. And especially because it contains a testimonial, and testimonials do really well to build trust. Okay, so let's adjust the corners of this content box to reflect the leaf shape that we created earlier with the button in the hero section. To do that, I'll select the content box, make sure that content box is highlighted in the breadcrumbs. Then I'll go to the borders and corners tab, and then I'll select the upper left-hand corner and I'll increase the corner radius. And I'll do the same thing for the bottom right-hand corner. And let's also add a drop shadow to this content box by going to the Shadow tab and clicking on the Drop Shadow button. Now we can also create this same leaf shape with the column on the right. To do that, it's really very simple. So let's go ahead and select the column. I'll click inside of the column, and then I'll use the breadcrumbs to make sure that I've got the column selected. Now let's go to the Background Style tab, and let's go ahead and add a solid color so that we can see the actual shape of the column. Okay, so next let's add some padding so that this text here isn't so close to the edge. So let's go to the Layout and Position tab. I'll go ahead and lock these dimensions so that I only have to input them once, and it will be reflected on all four sides. And now let's adjust the corners for this container. So again, just make sure that column is selected in the breadcrumbs. Then I'll go to the Borders and Corners tab. I'll select the upper left-hand corner, and I'll adjust the corner radius. And then I'll do the same for the bottom right-hand corner. All right, so now this is looking pretty good. All we have to do now is swap out the text, change the text color, and choose new icons. And when we're done with that, we'll move on to the next section. All right, so in this section, we have testimonials. Now, what's really nice about the testimonial blocks is that if you don't like the design, there are actually dozens of designs to choose from. So to choose a new design, let's click inside of this section here. Let's make sure that testimonial is highlighted in the breadcrumbs. And then over here on the left, you can go to the paint palette icon. And as you can see, there are dozens of other designs to choose from. I'll go ahead and choose this one. And so now you can go ahead and swap out the text for your own. Now, if you would like to add a title to this section, as shown in the example here, you can easily do that by going to the Add Element button. Then you can click and drag the text element to where you want it. And then to have this text element match the other headings on the page, I'll simply go to the Text Element floating bar, and I'll select the appropriate heading. All right, so I'm happy with this section. Let's move on to the next one. Next up is the Case Studies section. So let's take a quick look at our example again. So I've changed the background here, and so now we have the same striped pattern background from the Hero section, and I've also changed the shape of these images here. So let's go back to our page, and let's start with the background section. Now, if you've worked really hard at crafting a great looking background and you want to repeat it for other sections but without doing all the work to create layer after layer again, you can save sections as templates. So let's go back up to the Hero section and let's select it, and let's duplicate this section. And so in this instance of this section, I will delete anything that isn't part of the background. And so now I'll go ahead and save this section as a template by going to the Save Template button here. And let's go ahead and give this a name. If you like, you can give it a category. And then I'll click Save New Template. All right, so now that the template is saved, I can go ahead and click on this background section and I can delete it. So now let's scroll back down to the Case Studies section. And let's add in our template. So I'll go to the Add Element button. Let's search for the Templates and Symbols element, and I'll click and drag this into place. I'll go ahead and select my template. And so now I'm simply going to move these elements into my new section. All right, so now I can delete the old one. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and change the color of the text so that it's easier to read. Now for the post list element, you'll have to click on the element and then go to Edit Design. And then when you select one of the post list titles, you can choose a new color. And now because these text elements are grouped, I only have to change one of them and the others will change automatically. Now let me go ahead and remove these arrows because I just don't really want them for this design. And now let's change the shape of these images. So I'll simply click on one, and then I'll go to Borders and Corners. And again, I'll select the upper left-hand corner and then change the corner radius. And I'll select the bottom right-hand corner and change the corner radius as well. When you're finished making your customizations, you can click Done to click out of the post list element. Now let's quickly talk about what's being shown in this case study list. Now remember, what's actually being shown here is determined dynamically using the post list element. So you don't have to manually figure out exactly which posts to show. You just need to configure the post list element, and when you publish new case studies, this list will automatically update. So let's go ahead and set up the post list element. So I'll click on the post list element, and then I'll go to the post list tab on the left, and let's go to filter posts. Now you can choose to display posts, pages, products, Thrive Apprentice lessons, or Thrive Apprentice modules. For now, I'll choose posts. And then to display posts from a specific category, I'll go ahead and add a rule, and then I'll create a display rule based on categories. And now I'll click the Add button to add my category. And then in the Order section, you can specify which criteria you would like to use to place them in a specific order, and then you can choose either ascending or descending, and then you can choose how many results to display. For now, I'll click Save and Close. Now I'm seeing here that there's a lot of space underneath the post list element, so let's go ahead and adjust that. I'm going to select the background section, then let's go to Layout and Position, and I'll adjust my padding. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's move on to the next section. So by now, I think you know all of the tricks. In this section, I'll quickly change the background color. And I'll change the shape of this button to reflect the same shape that we have in our hero section. And I'll go ahead and customize the text. To link up this button with my opt-in page, I'll select the button, make sure that button is highlighted in the breadcrumbs, then I'll go to Animation and Action, and I will edit this link here. And I'll simply start typing the name of my opt-in page, and it should pop up. Finally, we have the footer. Like the header, the footer is a linked section, so any changes you make here will be reflected on other theme templates. If you would like to choose a different footer just for this page, you can do so using the Change Footer button. For now, let's just edit this footer so that changes will be reflected globally. So the first thing I would like to do is change the background color. So let's go to the Background Style tab, and let's go ahead and click on this swatch here to change the color. Now, a lot of our elements have disappeared because they are black text on top of a black background. So let's go through and let's change all of the text elements to white. Now don't forget just how easy it is to move elements around if you need to. So let's say that I would like to move these social follow icons over here to underneath the logo. I'll simply click on the social follow element, then I'll click and drag on the crosshairs icon, and I'll drag that to underneath the logo. And it's also really easy to do things like resize columns. So for example, I can click and drag on this column divider here to give this column just a little more space. All right, so we're done with this page. I'll click Done to click out of editing the footer, and I'll go ahead and save my work. And so the very last thing that we'll have to do is check to make sure that this page will look good on tablets and mobile phones. So let's use the buttons at the bottom of the page, and let's see what this page looks like in tablet mode. And let's focus on the header for a bit. So let's click on the header, and let's go to Edit Header. And I would like a cleaner look for both tablets and mobile devices, so I would like to hide the social follow icons and this button here on both tablets and mobile phones. So let's select the social follow icons, and let's go down to the Responsive tab, and let's turn off visibility for tablets and mobile phones. And then to fix the spacing here, I'll simply click on the column divider and I'll drag this over to the left. And I'll do the same thing for this button. So I'll click on this button, make sure that button is highlighted in the breadcrumbs, then I'll go to the Responsive tab, and I'll turn off visibility for tablets and mobile devices. And again, I'll click and drag on the column divider to bring this all the way over to the right. Now at the moment we cannot see our main menu because it is collapsed into a hamburger menu, and also because the hamburger menu is black on top of a black background. So let's go ahead and let's change that hamburger menu to white. So I'll click on the custom menu, make sure that custom menu is highlighted in the breadcrumbs. Then in the main options tab, I'll go down to the icon color and I'll choose a new color. Now, if you like, you can also change the menu icon. Right now we have a circle. Let's go ahead and change it to square. Now, right now our menu is closed. We'll also need to make sure that it looks good when it is open. So let's go ahead and click the open menu state. All right, so our menu items are listed here somewhere, but we can't really see them because they're white on white. So let's go ahead and let's change this background color. So you can go ahead and click on one of the menu items, then go to the background style tab, and let's go ahead and change this background color. All right, so now we can actually see our menu items. So let's go back to the custom menu, and let's go ahead and change the menu state to closed. And now let's just make sure that the rest of the page looks good. So here is something that I would like to change. So I can just click and drag the column divider to move this over a bit. That looks better. All right, so I'm pretty happy with how this page looks. Let's also check to make sure that it looks good on mobile phones. Now, first thing, let's make sure that the menu looks good. So let's click on the custom menu. Then under main options, let's go to menu state and let's go to open. And I am happy with how this looks, so I'll go ahead and close it. And let's take a look at the rest of the page. Okay, it looks like all of these sections look good. Let's go ahead and let's save our work. All right, so after you've finished customizing your home page, you can move on to customizing the rest of the templates for your website. Now, these won't be nearly as involved because there are fewer sections on the other templates. For now, let's make some quick customizations to our default post template. So as you can see, our default post template is using the header and the footer that we customized when we were working on the home page. So we don't need to make any further adjustments there. So let's just focus on the customizations that you can make to a section such as the top section. So I'll click inside of the top section here. And if you would like to choose a completely different design, you can absolutely do that. Just go over here to the left and click Choose a Ready-Made Design. And so here you have dozens of different designs that you can choose from. Now I would like to keep working with our current design, so I'll simply close this window. And what I would like to do is change the top section to be light colored text on a dark colored background, and I'd also like to add a fancy divider between the top section and the rest of the page. So let's start with the background color. I'll click inside of this section here, make sure that top section is highlighted in the breadcrumbs. Then let's go to the background style tab, and let's go ahead and change this color here to something darker. And let's go ahead and change the text to white. All right, so now we can add something like a fancy divider to the bottom edge of this top section. So let's click inside of this top section, make sure that top section is highlighted in the breadcrumbs. Then let's go to the decorations tab. Now let's be sure to select this bottom edge here. And in this drop down, let's go to Fancy Divider, and I'll click Choose. And there's lots of different dividers to choose from. Let's choose this one. Now if you like, you can change the height of this divider. You can also change the direction if you like. Now we do need to add a little bit of space here for our social follow icons. So let's go down to Layout and Position, and let's adjust the padding along the bottom edge of our top section. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. Let's also check to make sure that it looks good on tablets. I think that looks pretty nice, and let's also make sure it looks good on mobile phones. We do need to adjust the padding here, so let's just go ahead and adjust the bottom padding. All right, so I really like how this looks. I'll go ahead and save my work. Now don't forget that there are other sections to this template that you can customize and really make your own. So let's go back to the desktop view, and you can also customize the sidebar as well as the bottom section. But I think you've got the gist, so I'll let you explore those on your own. Alright, so here is what the website looks like. As you can see, it is very different from the Kwik companion theme that we started with. So you really don't have to be afraid of your site looking too much like everyone else's, because even if people are using the same companion theme, there are lots of ways to customize it and to create a look that is unique to your brand. And if you've been afraid to make customizations, hopefully now you can see that even fairly drastic customizations aren't too difficult when you use Thrive Theme Builder. You can get Thrive Theme Builder along with the rest of our tools when you purchase Thrive Suite, so click the link in the description to learn more. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.